Hi, this is Tim Bivans, and today we're going to start playing with Unity here in SGD111. And what we're going to do today is create a terrain, and then we're going to walk around that terrain. After that, we will create a web player of the terrain walk around. The web player is important because most of your assignments in the future will be submitted by creating a web player and zipping up the folder that creates, and so learning it now will aid you in the future. So let's get started. As you see, I'm here in Unity. The first thing you should know is that the default terrain assets that come in Unity are very sparse. There's not many of them. So the first thing we're going to do is just go grab some more assets that we can work with. So to do that, we need to import new terrain assets. We're going to go into Window, Asset Store. The Asset Store is a hugely important part of Unity, as there are tons of free assets there and assets that you can buy. This is important to you because there are people making real money just by creating assets for the Asset Store. So you should definitely see it as an avenue as a game developer for making some money. Alright, so once we're in here, we're going to come up here to search and just say terrain, and it should be your first result. Unity has a package of terrain assets right here. You see it's Unity Technology and it's free. You want to click on that and it'll give you more detail. See, it has 12 trees, 12 bushes, 6 grass types, 22 terrain textures. Right? Just click on this import button, and it will start decompressing the package. At this point, it will ask you if you actually want to import this package, which of course we do. In a second. You do have the option to import certain things and not import other things. In this case, we're going to import everything. And it's taking this. There it is. As you see, here's the import window. And we're just going to leave everything checked because we want everything. We can say import, and then it will import it. So once that's done, we can close this asset store, and you'll see here we have a folder in our assets folder called terrain assets, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, so now that we have our assets, we're going to create a blank terrain on which to work. So we're going to go up to Assets, Game Object, Create Other, and Terrain. And it looks very unimpressive right now, right? It gives you this big gray blank terrain. By now you should have played around with moving around in Unity a little bit, but if you need more experience with that, you might want to go back to the editor tutorials that we had last week and play around with that some more. But the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So now we have this blank terrain, and it's really dark, and you'll notice that if you look in the game window here that everything's really dark. We need to add a light, so we're just going to go to the hierarchy and create a directional light, and everything's a lot brighter now. Just pull that out of the way. Okay, now we're going to mess around with the terrain a little bit. So we're going to go in the hierarchy and click on terrain. And you'll see over here in the inspector, there's terrain script. These are your tools for modifying terrain, right? The first one is raise lower terrain. As it says, click to raise, hold down shift to lower. Right? So click here and you'll see that we're getting hills as we click, right? The brush size changes how wide the hill is, right? And opacity changes how quickly it raises it. So if you turn the opacity up, it raises it very quickly. It says hold down Shift, you can lower it. There are different brushes. Play around with these. Have fun with it, right? This is the fun part. Alright, the next one is sometimes you want plateaus, and the easiest way to do that is to paint height, right? What this does is it will raise the terrain up to this height right here, right? And then it will stop and flatten out. See how that works? So if I change the height, it will flatten out at a different spot, right? See how that works? It's very useful. Also, say I have a height right here and I want a plateau right there. You can, if you look here, it says hold Shift to sample target height. I can hold Shift and click, and then I can paint, and it'll paint it right at that level, right? All right. Say after you've done this, some of your terrain looks jagged. You can smooth it out with the smooth tool, so it doesn't look quite so bumpy. Right. And then the next tool is the paint texture. Right. Be aware that the first texture you add is called the splat texture and will be applied to the entire terrain. So you should pick the one that's going to apply to the most terrain possible. Right now, if you see here textures, no terrain textures defined. You have to add textures into the engine so that you can use them. So click on Edit Textures and Add Texture. This will bring up this window here. You'll see texture and normal map. Right now we're not going to worry about normal maps. We're just going to use the textures. So click on Select here. And then all the textures you have available to you will pop up. You should avoid things that look kind of 3D in nature because they will look very odd as a painted texture. But it does allow you to do that for some reason. But we're just going to choose grass right there and add, right? And you notice immediately everything changes to that texture, right? Let's go ahead and add another texture, and maybe pebbles, right? Add that, and just add a few, right? Maybe rocky dirt. All right, and now you can see this little line underneath it that shows you your current selection, right? And then you can paint away. Again, you can change the brush size when you're painting so that you're not, if you want to get it down in fine detail, you can, right? But let's move on, right? So you feel free to play around with that at your leisure, right? Paint, 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 paint. All right. And next, place trees. Just like the textures, you have to add trees in before you can actually paint them on there. So click on Edit Trees, and then we're going to click here, this little target, right? Then you have all these trees. So we're going to start with the banyan trees. I really like those, right? And let's go ahead and add a few. Add tree with target. Let's see. Ferns are cool. And one more for now, the sycamore. Alright. Look at all these different options you have for placing trees. I like to put the brush size down fairly far. I like control my tree placement fairly. And this is the first time you get a sense of the scale of this level, right? They give you a fairly sizable level by default, and we'll talk about how to change that later on, right? But for now, just kind of place some trees around, play around with it, right? Right? We'll worry about the details in a minute. All right. So at this point, we're ready to walk around this level. But what we need to do first is import our character controller so we can. So go to Assets, Import Package, Character Controller. And this will import just like the terrain did. And you say import. All right. And we see standard assets down here in our assets, character controllers. And if you look over here, first person controller. This allows you to walk around just like in a first person shooter, right? It's got all the controls you need. Just drag this over into our hierarchy. And then we can focus on it, right? By going here. Yep. Okay. And notice he's way off of the terrain. Right now, if we started this, he would fall off the earth, right? So we don't want that. We're going to look at it from above, right? And then we'll come in here, we're going to move him around. Right. At this point, you can click play, and you will see in the game window that you can, in fact, walk around your terrain. All right, you stop play. And that is your basic terrain editor. I'm going to put another video just for the web player because I have that in several different classes and I want to just focus on that. But that is basic terrain. Please play around with it. Make something beautiful. All right.